So the literature review has to be done to identify the authors, the main authors which are working in your domain, which you might also contact. If you have identified the author which has written a lot, you can write personally to this author, write an email telling him or her, I'm working on the same topic. Would you mind me to send you an article or you research because I'm interested in it? We are all happy when you're contacted because our research is read by so few people that whenever somebody contacts us, we are happy to share our knowledge. And that is why don't be shy to contact researchers. Say you're a student in a given university, you're working on a given topic which is related to the topic of this professor, and then you are asking for articles he or she has published. The literature review is also important to define concepts and to find concepts and define them, and to find the main theories which are relevant in the domain you're working on. We will see that in some instance. It is important to see and to identify the measurement scales and measurement instruments that are used to measure the concepts. It is important to also measure and see the methods and the main results which have been found by the literature. And finally, it is also to show the interest of your chosen subject or research topic. So it shows the interest, and by summarizing, by showing the status quo of the literature, you will show the importance of the topic, you will identify the concepts and theories, the measurement instruments, you will show the summarized main results, the main problems that have been found, and the interest of your topic. The idea is you read the literature, you're doing the literature review, you have to immediately define the concepts or the variables which are relevant for your research. First of all, what is a concept? A concept is also the variables you're working on. It is a generally accepted collection of meanings. It's a meaning and characteristics associated with objects, conditions, situations, and behaviors. So for example, loyalty is a purchase behavior, a repurchase behavior, and it is an attitudinal dimension of loyalty behavior. So this would be a definition of the concept loyalty. We will see some other examples in some instances. The concepts are important because they are the way that we make sense of the social world. Without concepts, we could not define our world, and they have significant common features. And in your literature review, it is therefore important to always give a definition or different definitions. If there are different definitions, you have to give different definitions. If the literature does not agree about the definition of the concept, social capital. What is social capital? So you all know Bourdieu, the French author. So he defines social capital as an aggregate of actual or potential resources which are linked to possession of a durable network of more or less institutionalized relationships of mutual acquaintance and recognition. So Bourdieu is the researcher, the one in the world who worked on social capital. We all have social capital. On Facebook, we have social capital. We have bridging capital, that is loose relationships, which bring us value. And we have strong relationships, which is bonding social capital, which brings us close relationships. To come back to the idea of social capital, so in your literature review, there's not only one definition, there are different definitions. Now you don't have to find the billions or thousands of definitions you find, but if there are different aspects of the concept, you should be able to give these different phases. So for example, here in this research, which we published in International Journal of Electronic Commerce, we found the definition of Bourdieu, which is the mainstream. The literature review should enable you to find the most cited authors in the domain, in the research domain, but it should also enable you to give a definition, the most used definition. So we found four other definitions. For example, for Coleman, social capital is not a single entity, but a variety of different entities, so different persons or institutions with two elements in common. They all consist of some aspect of social structures, and they facilitate certain actions of actors. Right? So facilitate links and exchanges. We have found the third definition: social capital refers to features of social organization, such as networks, norms, social trust, and facilitate coordination, corporations. Another definition, which is more organizational orientated. Fourth definition is social capital consists of resources which are embedded in one's networks or association. And a fifth definition we found is social capital is the goodwill available to individuals. Its source lies in the structure and content of the actor-social relation. So it affects flow from the information, influence, solidarity it makes available to the act. So without going too much into detail, it's only an example to show you. This is actually what you have to do. Don't search millions of definitions. Take those 1, 2, maximum 3 of the definitions which appears to you as most relevant or most understandable or the most applicable to your research. So the idea is here not to give you complete literature about social capital. It is to give 1 or 2 definitions or an enhanced vision about the concepts you're using. I'll give you another example. Coming from research, what is a social network? A social network is a network of individuals such as friends, acquaintances, or co-workers connected by interpersonal relationships. So in the introduction, we introduced the definition of social network. Social network sites are online platforms that allow users to create a public profile and interact among them on the website. And so we cite the author, it's Vitak and colleagues from 2011. Social networking sites usually have a new user input, a list of people with whom they share a connection, and then allow the people on the list to confirm and deny the connections. And so we can accept or deny. After connections are established, the user can search networks of connections to make even more connections. And this is what you find on Facebook. You connect with a friend, or on LinkedIn. Then you can look at the other acquaintances and links to enhance even more your network. And what are friends? So which is another concept we use in our research. Friends on social network sites are bidirectional connected contacts. So we are connected reciprocally, as opposed to one-directional fans and followers. For example, on Instagram, on Twitter, where it is only one direction. So in our research on Facebook, we consider bidirectional connected contacts, which are able to view each other profiles and posts. Friendships on social network sites can include a wide range of online connections, so more bonding social capital, close capital, and those which are more bridging social capital, which we met only online and which we perhaps never met in our real life. And here, one example, how you should introduce your literature review. Or another example, example 3, in the research we published about IoT and smart connected objects with one of my PhD students. You have the references in the lower part of the slide. So it was about smart connected objects and IoT. So we defined first the IoT is the network of devices such as vehicles and home appliances that contain electronic software, sensors, actuators, and connectivity, which allows these things to connect, interact, and exchange data. And the SCO, or smart connected object, is a smart device, is an electronic device generally connected to other devices or networks via different wireless protocols, such as Bluetooth, NFC, Wi-Fi, Li-Fi, 3G, 4G, 5G, that can operate to some extent interactively and autonomously. So these definitions are those we found mainly in the literature. We have found more definitions, which I don't cite here today, but the idea is only to show you, don't learn these definitions now, naturally. The idea is only to show you how to proceed. You should, for every concept or every variable you use, you should start with an introduction by defining the concept, after which you develop the hypothesis. Here you have the example of the technology acceptance model. There are different technology acceptance models. The basic one is the technology acceptance model from Davis, 1989, or also called TAM. It is based on the theory of recent actions, that is, customers are rational and take decisions based on cognitive beliefs. So the TAM suggests that when users experience a new technology, two factors influence the decision about how and when they will adopt or use it. Basically, the user's belief about perceived usefulness, or PU, which is the degree, it is defined as the degree to which the use of a new technology will enhance the user performance, and the user's belief about perceived ease of use, which is defined as the degree to which the use of a new technology is easy to use and without effort. Likewise, a higher perceived ease of use increases perceived usefulness, which both influence intention to use, since users are reluctant to make efforts in using new technology. For perceived usefulness and for ease of use, there are external cognitive, social, or affective variables, such as, for example, fears or trust, or social variable status or social pressure, or affective variables such as well-being, which influence on the left side as antecedents perceived usefulness and perceived ease of use. This is established by the literature, by Davis first, and there are a lot of other articles having published, so this is the common status quo of the literature, that these basic variables influence intention to use. So you see here how the literature review, we state the concepts or variables used, we define them, and after having defined them, we also explain the theory on which our model is based on. So in this introduction, we explain the technology acceptance model and its philosophy. We define the concepts, and then we subsequently explain and justify the links or relationships in our hypothesis. Example 5, well-being. What is well-being? In the literature, well-being is defined as the social, economic, medical, spiritual, psychological conditions of consumers. Well-being includes senses of hedonism, such as feelings of happiness and enjoyment, over health and quality of life. A greater well-being implies positive experiences, and therefore literature shows that it increases usefulness and mental representations of ease of use. Moreover, the theory of flow, which is a theory about well-being, considers that well-being is a predictor of attitudes, behavior, such as intention. We hypothesize that well-being influences positively intention of use. You see here in this example, first we define the concept, second we talk about the theory on which it's based on, and third we posit the hypothesis by justifying it by the existing literature. A sixth example, the resource-based view of the firm for sustained competitive advantage. So the study is about the impact of big data management on firm performance. Resource-based view is a very established, well-known theory that can explain competitive advantages of firms. That is why our choice went into the resource-based view. And it's a theory to determine the strategic resources a firm can exploit to achieve sustainable competitive advantages. It comes from two main authors, Barney and Wernerfeld. They define resources as all assets, capabilities, organizational processes, firm attributes, information, knowledge, or other, controlled by a firm that enable the firm to conceive of and implement strategies that improve its efficiency, effectiveness, and which creates a firm competitive advantage. So you see, we state the theory, then we subsequently define the concept, which are resources. Resources can be tangible or material, physical assets, financial, human resources, including real estate, raw materials, machinery, plant, inventory, brands, patents, trademarks, cash, and financial resources. But rather more important are the intangible resources. As for example, for customer relationship management, they are embedded in organizational practices or routines, such as the reputation, culture, knowledge, know-how, accumulated experience, relationship with customers, data information, big data management, information about customers to do personalization, but also privileged access to suppliers or any other key stakeholders. We have defined the resources. We have given the name of the theory in our literature research. We define big data. So big data are resources and are defined as new technologies and applications with specific skills and organizational practices required to analyze complex business data to better understand your business and make fact-based decisions. All this information, it is an embedded resource, and it can also be defined via the 5 V's of big data, defined in 2012, which means volume. That's big data, high volume, high storage, and analysis of high quantities of data, exabytes. Variety, so a high variety of types of data, purchase data, IoT, text, image, voice data. So all this contributes to big data. Velocity, so it's quick access and streaming of data. Veracity, so the data might be incomplete or fake data. Better the data, the more it is based on veracity and complete and true data. And it should contribute to business value, make money. For example, Facebook has a business model based on the data by doing advertisement and by generating advertisement revenues or personalized advertising for brands which have brand communities on Facebook. So this is just some example without going too much in detail. What I want that you have understood until now is review what other researchers wrote, which are the main theories, for example, resource-based view, for example, social capital theory, for example, technology acceptance theory, whatever topic you're working on, technology acceptance or brand image studies or consumer behavior studies, it is important to identify through the literature review the mainstream theories which are used in your research domain, the main concepts which are covered by the literature, in order to see which are the main researchers working, which you have to cite in your literature review, to define the concepts, to state the theories, to find the instruments, how these concepts were measured or are measured, to summarize the main status quo of the results about impact for social capital on well-being or about the impact of perceived ease of use and perceived usefulness on intention to use, or the impact of other antecedents, cognitive, affective antecedents of perceived usefulness, that is the benefits of the technologies, or the impact of big data on farm performance. This is important to position your topic and to show that you master the literature. And that is why it's a very important chapter, because it shows to the supervisor and also to the jury who's reading your research, or to any reader, what has been written until today about the research you're working on. And this enables also to show that you're doing a theoretical contribution and that you're closing a research gap. This research gap can only be identified through an extended literature. So that is why it is so important to do that. So how to do the literature review? Yeah, the only answer is read, and again, read articles and make summaries. When you read articles, do a short summary. So I will show you in some instance how to do that. It is very important because unless you will forget everything. It helps you to find research questions, to identify the research questions that have been treated in the literature. It helps you to find seminal authors in your domain. It shows you recent works covering your subject or theme. It helps you to understand and describe the main theories used. It helps you to define main concepts of the field and to develop at the end conceptual models. And above all, to point out controversies. Because you will see when reading around one topic, so you will have a lot of controversies, which is a good thing. The impact of well-being on behavior is not established at all. So the more you can find controversies, the more you can close a research gap. The less you find controversies, the more the literature is established and the less you will find actually new things or new contributions you can do, because then the literature knows that that's actually no discussion anymore. If you take the example of the technology acceptance model, the basic 10, we know now that perceived ease of use and perceived usefulness contribute to intention of use. That's absolutely basic now. So it's no point to investigate any more of these basic variables. We include them in the model for completeness because they are important and they're actual mediating variables impacting intention of use. But what is more important? What is the discussion? What is the controversy? Which antecedents impact perceived usefulness? There is, namely, which cognitive, affective, and social variables impact as antecedents the perceived usefulness. So that is why it is important to look for new concepts, new variables, as the world is changing. Let's say 30 years ago, when the technology acceptance model was developed in the computer context, the computers were new. It was a disruptive technology, and social factors and well-being factors were not so relevant, and privacy concerns were not relevant at this point. Nobody thought about privacy concerns at this moment. That is why the basic model held very well. Today, the world changed, so we are confronted with big data collection, we're confronted with social pressure, social norms, we're confronted with well-being or bad being, stress, addiction. So that is why it makes sense to enhance the model with new phenomena or new concepts, which are absolutely relevant today when looking at technology acceptance. And this is valid for any domain you're working on for your thesis. Whatever you're working on, you might take an old theory, for example, in customer relationship management. We have a lot of theories, for example, social capital theory, social exchange theories. We have theory of equity or theory of justice, which is very important for equilibrium relationships, because all our relationships are based on justice that we perceive, for example, in terms of procedures, in terms of benefits we get, in terms of relationships, without going too much into detail. But what I'm telling to you is that you have to find these theories, and these theories fit very well, and they might be enhanced by new concepts, which might be part of your contribution in your research. Or the simple application of using a theory, which are mostly established in Western context, namely US context, the simple replication to do it in emerging countries such as China, Thailand, Vietnam, or other African or Latin American countries is a contribution, because these theories come from Western culture, Western civilization. And the idea to test if the theory holds in completely new cultural context is a very important theoretical contribution.
To come back to the summary you have to do, summarize also the measurement instruments or measurement scales which are used to measure the concepts, and which you can find either in the appendix of the article or within the articles. So the measurement scales with the different items. Then summarize the statistical methods, try to understand them in order to use them for your research, and for example, regression methods or ANOVA or structural equation modeling, survey methods or experimentations.
The results should be summarized in the section literature review, and take again these results in the discussion section. The idea is you're doing your research, you're doing an investigation, and you're finding results after having analyzed your data. In the discussion of the results, you come back to your literature review in order to compare your results with the results found by the literature. So the importance is to compare the results you have summarized in the literature review in the discussion section. To give you some examples, for example, if you're working on trust and loyalty, then you compare your results about trust and the impact of trust on loyalty. And in the discussion section, you come back to your literature review and you say that, for example, in line with Morgan and Hunt 1994, trust has a significant and positive impact on loyalty, attitudinal loyalty, but also behavioral loyalty. So you're in line with literature. Or, for example, satisfaction has, in line with literature, a significant impact on trust and subsequently on loyalty. This would be one example how you compare your results in the discussion section with the results coming from the literature review. Or we found that well-being does not influence such as behaviors in contrast to the literature. One explanation might be the context of our collection of data. We have only a convenience sample, or it might be that the technology which is used in this context does not contribute to well-being. That is why we think we found this main difference between the literature and our results. Let's come back to the last part of the literature review.
Finally, find the weaknesses in the limits and research direction section, the weaknesses and gaps in research in order to criticize the literature to date and point out existing research gaps, which are then the base for your research and your research contribution.
So indeed, the section about limits and research directions is an important basis for researchers to find the weaknesses, limits, and this gives them the ability to formulate research directions, which are the basis for future or other researchers to find a gap in order to do a research contribution. That is why pay attention by reading the last section of an article about the weaknesses and gaps in research and the future research directions, because they give very valuable insights about potential theoretical contribution that can be done in the future. That is why it's important to do the literature review, because only when having done the literature review, you can do the link between your results and the literature. That is why really take care to do an extended literature review. It's probably the part which takes you most time of within your thesis. And it's never finished. Doing a research, even before writing your final document, it makes sense to look again on the literature if new articles, recent articles were published about your topic in order to actualize your literature review. It's like a turning cycle. When we are writing a research article, it never stops because publication research never stops. So we have always to actualize. So it's never finished, a literature. But in any case, even if you have started your literature review and you're having done your result, then it makes sense to come back to research new articles that might have dealt with your topic. First of all, you will use Business Source Ultimate. Business Source Ultimate, which is the database in which you can find all articles in social science and management literature. You have others accessible, for example, Elsevier, Progress, Science Direct, Google Scholar. But your main database into which our university is enrolled is Business Source Ultimate as a research engine, and you have to search by keywords. For example, in the distribution about smart homes or smart vehicles is done because very few literature is published. How did we do this research? We went to Business Source Ultimate and we combined keywords. For example, we searched smart home and marketing, or smart home and well-being, or smart home and artificial intelligence, smart home and IoT. And so by combining 1, 2, or 3 keywords, you will be able to find what have been published. And by combining, so we will find a lot of literature about smart homes, but coming mainly from the engineering literature. If you combine, and if you come back to the example I showed you in the last chapter, we found only 2 or 3 articles about smart home and well-being. So this shows that there's a gap, because there's nothing published about the domain. And so the less you will find published, the higher will be also the possible contribution you can do. The danger about this research about smart homes we are doing actually is also there's no literature. You as young researchers, it might be a danger. It's a little bit like I compare it with skiing. A beginner, you should not go directly in powder snow because you will fall down and you will disappear in the powder snow. If you're confirmed, it makes sense and you will take a lot of pleasure. You will have a lot of enjoyment and fun by doing that. But if you're an unexperienced researcher, you should not go into the powder snow because you might find not enough literature justifying your hypothesis. So this might be a danger. So avoid research questions without sufficient literature. The course is not already covered, but also avoid research question with a lot of literature. Both are dangerous. If you're going on a ski slope where a lot of skiers have already going down, it becomes like ice. You're sliding. Too much literature is not good neither, because if you find hundreds of articles about the topic, then it's not good because this means that there's no contribution to do. There's little potential contributions. So optimal if you find 5 to 20 more recent articles from over the last 5 years in optimum average. Find sources, store the articles in your own database. And whenever you find an article, download the PDF file and storage it on your computer in different files. For example, if you're doing your research about technology acceptance, then you will storage articles about technology acceptance, other articles about privacy concerns in a folder about privacy concerns, other articles about well-being in a folder about well-being, so that you can find easily again the articles you have read.